Welcome back to another episode of Breaking the Line. I'm Samuel.
And I'm Charleton.
And we're again taking a deep dive into the arts of mime and choreography.
It's almost like that's what we do every time.
Almost every time. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes it's take like a shallow dive into like clownery.
That's a good idea for an April 1st podcast.
I can do clown work, okay. I mean, you've never made like a.
I can make a balloon dog. You know?
Yeah, that's a solid. So anyway, today instead of talking about balloon dogs, we're talking about two sets of Joneses.
Here's a song about two sets of people named John or something like that. I forget what it's about.
Fun fact: if you want to watch, there is a music video, and it is just like dated. It's really dated. Like showing these couples with these acid wash jeans and everything, like at the zoo. It's pretty great. But two sets of Joneses, classic song. Do you want to give us some statistics about this song?
So this here song was written by Tess, Bloyer, my old director, of course. And it was
fangirl.
Yeah. So this is actually a pretty crazy song because this is one of the earliest mime songs that I ever learned.
Pretty early up there, yeah.
Yep. This video that we have here is from 2009. Which, if you recall my story about mime, I started in fall of 2008.
So you're in this song.
I'm in this song. I think, I'm just a background dude. I don't have anything major, but once again, I was in here for, I think, less than a year at this point in mime.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into it. It always bothered me that that's how you spell Joneses.
Well, if you notice, the title of the YouTube video and the title put onto the video itself are different from each other. It's because I don't know how to
There's no So I do love two narrators for this song. I can, less people, you can do one narrator, but I feel like two narrators show that like each of them chose a random person, gets to kind of bring it to the table of this conversation. Mm-hmm. This is one of those songs that a narrator really is appropriate because the song is narrated.
Yes. Yep. Also, the names I'd like to note: Rothschild, Evelyn, Ruben, and Sue. Those are some names, man.
And, I mean, it just adds to the realism, right?
They're truly random.
Truly random.
Right.
No. And as course choreography goes, I know we've kind of ripped on that in the past. I feel like this is one of the better choreographies, even though it's like short and simple. Like, it just works really well with the essence of like rain clouds coming in, storm clouds rolling out. Like, it looks really good.
Yep, and it really progresses the song. Like, there aren't many songs that I would say like the narrator is super necessary. This is actually one of few. And the chorus doing really well.
Just add a signer in there. This is like, it develops the story with them.
Yep. So there's Alex.
Represent Alex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm two people to the right of him. At least I think so. I think that's me. But you know what? Now that I'm looking at it.
No, there's definitely some nuances to how these characters can act, which I do love. That if you have a team that's new or you're teaching a workshop with people who don't know what they're doing, you can say, just do this, and your main characters will just do that. It's fine. Mm-hmm. Whereas if they have characterization, mind skills, you can like develop it like they are. Their whole character is doing something the whole time.
Yep. And even the use of the background people, like on stage left there on house right, you'll notice that they come out and it's like the guys at the factory are coming in, and it allows a nice sort of like scene building.
Yeah.
Because this is like an early version of like the storybook format, as we might call it, where each side of the stage is a different story going on concurrently.
Right.
And so it allows like this backdrop of people in 00 here can then be painted as something to embellish each scene. And I don't know, I just think that they did a really good job of it.
Yeah, so it's like you have the scene and people come in and out of it that like, embellish it. I do love the look of it. Yeah, sad story ending, of course.
Yep.
Now, there's definitely been some talks on my table like, how sad can this song be? Like, where the child here is like dejected by the mother and the father.
Yeah, and he's got money in his shoe.
Of course. I mean,
I've seen some people do some crazy things like that. So.
It's a classic old trope, but
the child gets taken with him.
Right, but I do love the development of, raise a child in the way they should go. You have this like sense of, now this family is being, or this child is being protected by a solid home. What do you feel about this extra chorus at the end? Now, obviously it'd be really difficult to get rid of it audio-wise, but I feel like it doesn't develop here. Like, you've had the people fall, but now at this point, the chorus plays, they're already on the ground.
Yeah, I kind of think that it should be done away with, but if they weren't to do away with, maybe if there was some way to like develop Ruben and Sue a little bit more on this, like so that we, instead of them just staying static in this kind of form, maybe this is their ending form, but like during the second to last chorus, they have something extra that they do, and then the last chorus they finally end at this pose.
Right.
But that would be, I don't know, but like something like that.
No, and similar with this ending, it feels like it works because it fits the lighty-di-di-dies or whatever you do, but it is a long time.
Yeah, and I feel like I honestly really liked the lighty dies because it like gives you a deliberate moment of reflection.
Right.
Where you gotta actually look and think for yourself for a second and look at it and go, yeah, I guess.
So you're telling me that if I was to like be a speaker during the presentation after this song, so I'd stand up and go, lighty-di, lighty-di, lighty-di. What are you gonna do about it now?
What are you gonna do?
Yeah. It's my speech. Like lighty-di. So, but what about you?
And then just like pause for just like 10 seconds and just
exactly.
Just
That's
eye
exactly
people
how
about
we do it. All right. So, message and purpose of the song. I think the purpose of the song is that there's two sets of Joneses.
Yep. There are two sets. They were deliberately chosen through purposeful selection.
Yes.
We've chosen two couples who knew exactly why we chose them,
Okay.
Yeah.
Purpose of message.
So message, I think, like, honestly, it's a very clear message. Like, there are two sets of Joneses, two sets of people, two families. One has Christ and one doesn't. And what's even more interesting that I think added to the juiciness of the message is that it didn't make them two equal people.
Yeah.
It made actually the Christians more destitute and the non-Christians rich.
Yeah.
And like, it was kind of an interesting contrast that it was like, these are the people, like, honestly, Rothschild and Evelyn, they have it better off. Like, they are the ones, if anybody was to succeed, it would be them. And then you have Ruben and Sue, who are, they're just regular people, low class kind of
working at the factory, which is kind of a
blue collar type job.
Older way of saying they're not wealthy means.
Yeah, and considering the song is like from the 80s or 90s,
exactly.
Like that was a classic thing to like trope a stereotype, if you will.
Yes, exactly. Of the blue collar. You're going to work for your money, you don't have a whole lot.
Yeah.
What are some things that worked well for the song?
So I think that this song is one of the ones that I'm going to give like really high ratings on clarity, and so that's what I'm going to say it worked really well. This message is very straightforward. It gets it, and it isn't even a simple message.
Right,
like other things have like a simpler message, and that's of course like, yeah, they're more clear. But this one, it actually has a relatively more complicated, like more nuanced, more thought-provoking. Granted, like you could boil it all down to you need Jesus and stuff like that. But like ultimately, it has a more nuanced message, a more thought-provoking type message that at the very end asks, which one will you be?
Right.
So I like that.
It leans itself into that, like that purpose or like the message of the song, right?
Yes.
Like you have to answer that question for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I think the clarity of the song is one of the best features of it, where it's very like this or that. Do you want to be this or that? Now, granted, it could be a little bit too stereotypical, or like as if Christians are perfect, or like everything's a little too neat and cookie cutter. But that's like the song, right? That's the music. That's not the choreography there. As far as the choreography goes, some things that I liked, again, like that chorus background, it's simple, but it's effective. It gets the rain and the clouds coming through.
Yep. And something, while we're talking about the chorus, something that I really like about the chorus is that it, like even when it does the blew the four walls down, that actually affects the scene going on in front, downstage. Like, most choruses that have choreography or something, they just happen and then, we go back to the plot.
Yes.
This actually, the chorus more or less affects the plot, where it's like the rains, the rains coming down is part of the plot. It's part of the message.
We didn't take a break for the chorus. It literally keeps the storyline moving.
Yes. Yeah. And so I highly appreciate that. Like that, I do really like this song. This is a really good one.
All right. Anything you'd say as a critique to the choreography that you'd add or change or move around?
Well, it is kind of funny because I've seen different people do things different ways. I don't know if this would be a critique or not, but like you mentioned the two narrators. There's other times where they do a one narrator.
A little flexibility there.
Yep. There's some times where the amount of people on each side can vary. Whether they have one child or no child or two children or whatever. So I don't know if I would call it a critique or not, but like the way to make that work for your team is to kind of finagle with that a little bit. So.
Yeah, no, and I don't think that's part of the choreography would be kind of already set there. That's more up to the individual team, how they want to move it around or things that might need a change. I've had people that just really struggled with the Christian part because there's not a whole lot to do, but it was okay. We just kind of they were less the focus and it was more about the contrast against the other.
Yeah.
And if anything, made the Christian couple a simpler aspect of it, where their simple, humble means was what they honored God through.
Mm.
All right. Any other critiques?
Yeah, so I would critique that you weren't in this song, and Alex and I both were.
Dang. Okay, so props to the down.
Just kidding.
No, I would probably critique the ending, just feeling like whenever you have a repeat chorus, you have to do something with it. You can't just redo the chorus line, because then it ruined the whole it affected the scene. And I think that's what throws me off, where the couple is already on the ground and the Christian couple has not done anything for a little bit now. So while I don't mind the lighty-dities for the asking a question aspect, that would be the one thing I'd want to develop the characters to give them something more to do.
Yeah,
I don't know
just
what that is,
something for kind of that epilogue there to kind of wrap it all up nicely in a bow.
Right. Maybe that last chorus, the family, their kid grows up and they move somewhere else. I don't know. We'll see. All right. So what about the theology of the song?
So this is something that I kind of not so certain on, which we already talked about it a little bit.
Yeah. No, this is one of those ones where and this is not, choreography's fault. It's just one of those things that Christians have taken that metaphor that Jesus gave in Matthew 7 about building your house on the rock and using it a little bit more of building your rock on good morals or a good foundation of doing the right thing, and that's how your life's going to be protected. But as we know from the story of Job, it's doesn't always quite work out that way. And if you look at Matthew 7, I don't think you're talking about just do the right thing or build morals well. What Jesus is saying is those who take the teaching, right, the Sermon on the Mount, and do them are this person who built their house on the rock, or those who don't do them are the person who builds on the sand. It's a little bit nuanced to the common Christian trope of build your life on Jesus. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's it gets kind of into that feeling of you do goodly and goodly things happen to you. And it's not really that kind of... And
Proverbs, right, would lean towards that, right? You invest and there's a way that this is appropriate and good. But Job is just sitting there doesn't always work out that way.
There's a reason why Psalms, Proverbs, Job, and Ecclesiastes are all right there next to each other.
Right. There's this mixed bag of yes, generally that's how things should work out, and God is pleased to do that. But not always. There's something about this life that you can't just do the right thing and it always work out. And that theologically would be the only thing that I would caveat with it.
Yeah. That's kind of where I kind of not so sure on it, because
it's complicated, right?
Yeah, it's the way that this paints it paints it so simply of you have Jesus, life is good even if you don't have much, and if you don't have Jesus, it's bad. And that's not always the case for either of those ones.
Yes, exactly.
There are lots of rich people who aren't saved who have a good life.
Right.
And by secular means, I should say.
Exactly.
And then there are lots of Christians who have not a lot and their lives suck. It's a thing that happens. And the way that this paints it, it sounds more oh yeah, if you have Jesus, everything will go according to how you want it to. And that's just not true.
It's just too simplified. And granted, I think if you were to follow this up in a common presentation, there's ways to show that and depict that as a whole, right? But yeah, it is something just oversimplified that you just have to caveat a little bit. All right, so let's rate it. As always, Charleton, do you remember? Pop quiz.
Dürfen, Schnurgen, and Flurgendun.
Yes, we're going to Dürfen, which is Celtic.
That's gibberish for clarity, difficulty, and style.
And sorry, what? And
style.
Yeah. All right, what are you going to give a rating? Clarity.
Clarity, I give Clarity like a 9, honestly.
I don't.
Like,
Is there a reason you're not giving it a 10?
the reason I'm not giving it a 10 is because of the issues with theology.
Mhm.
Like, as much as
Yeah.
yes, I had a lot of issues with theology, and that's not really the song's fault. That's more of like
Yeah,
just how the song goes.
exactly.
I also am kind of a little hands off with it because the message is so. It's not that it's simple; it's that it's simplified. It's got a lot of nuance. It's got a lot of good stuff going with it, and I've already talked about that. But like the things that it's missing is something to supplement the parts that
The
are
caveat, yes, and
Yeah.
the complicated part of actual life.
Yep. But then I still give it a 9 because it's awesome. Like what it's trying to do is very
Exactly.
easily
To what
and
it's
clearly
trying to do.
communicated.
And that's why I give
Yeah.
it a 9 too.
Yeah.
It's just like its goal is to show that life is better, and I do believe this. Life is always better. It's more abundant with Christ. That doesn't always look like the kind of
look like-
abundance that we're talking about.
Right. It doesn't always look like, you'll have all the money that you need,
Yeah.
but it does always look like life is good because you have Christ.
That hope.
Yeah, that hope you have.
Yeah. All right. Difficulty. The hardest parts are kind of what you want to make it. The background parts are pretty simple. Remember when you come out in 00, you have a narrator that needs to remember some signs.
Yeah, narrator part's probably the hardest.
I'd say 3 on difficulty. Like
I was gonna say like 4.
you want to get the course people to do like the stuff together, but some of it is also like preference of like how polished you want it to make it look. That's
Yeah.
the
Well,
process.
and that's why I would give it more of a 4 than a 3 is because like you with each of the 4 main Joneses,
Mhm.
all of them can have a cool character that they
Exactly.
throw in there. And
So
like
you have 4 Joneses, 1, 2, 3, 4 on difficulty.
exactly. No. So the narrators alone kind of bump up the difficulty a little bit. The Joneses allow you to embellish those in whatever way possible. So it's got a lot of scalability. So I don't know.
Yeah, that helps.
There is that.
But
So-
but overall, they still need to do certain parts. They need to show their character. They need
Yeah.
to show the development of that their marriage isn't going well.
Yeah. And so like the way that people can embellish that makes me want to give it a little bit higher on difficulty, but I also can't give it that high difficulty because it's just
Right.
not that hard
We've
of a song.
definitely used this one for workshops as far as teaching people quickly. Like you take the narrator and the 2 main parts, and you have your team members teach them, while one person teaches all the back chorus, and you're set.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, and style.
Style.
I feel like the chorus is good and has like the moments it affects it, but as far as overall, there's a low number of backflips, and so I feel like
Just not enough backflips.
it just gives a low style rating for me. Like it looks good, can't blame it, but it's just simple. So like
So what are you thinking?
a 4.
Honestly, yeah, I was gonna go like a 4.
Yeah.
Because like it doesn't break any bounds. It is one of the songs that goes very well along with the lyrics, which makes it so it's very straightforward, not very complicated.
Yes.
The things that I like we talked about the chorus, where the chorus actually affects the front. Those are some things that, yes, they do really well. The narrator being in there and actually the narrator making sense as opposed to just being in there because, they
Yes.
need a narrator.
Yes.
I give that points as well. But like the things that they do that isn't that
Complicated.
fantastic.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a short song actually. Like
Yeah.
as far as like how much time is dedicated to the chorus, which is repeated, and how much time is dedicated to lots of plot development. Like it's pretty short. You get like 2 lines for each of the couples for each of the verses. Goes very fast. So there's not a whole lot you have to do with it. So style with it, yeah. Style wise, keep it a 4.
That's okay.
It seems like there's an inverse relationship between clarity and style.
I was gonna say
The
something about
harder the
that.
style get, like the more style you're trying to add in, the harder it is to keep the clarity high as well.
No, and it is true because like I do think that they are very inverse because when you think about like what message you're trying to convey, you have to do it as simple as possible without insulting the audience intelligence.
Yes.
That's what would make the clarity really good.
Yeah.
Whereas in style, you're going for artfulness, and the message kind of takes a back burner because you're trying to do something risky, you could say. And because you're taking risks, sometimes they pay off, sometimes they don't. And for a lot of the times, I have to I can't just say, well, this worked because you took a risk, but
Yes.
more that since you took a risk, it's possible that it didn't work.
Yes.
Those are the kind of
How
inverse relationship.
No, absolutely. Cool. All right. Well, as always, like our video, please.
Please.
Comment down below if you have any fun stories with the song.
The original video and our podcast introduction is in the description below.
As always.
And make sure to mash that like squad.
Or something like that. All right. And I'm Samuel.
And I'm Charleton. Breaking the line.